everybody, welcome back. This is Allan Ting, and welcome to another series of expert interview series. And I'm super excited about this particular interview because typically we have experts, that we bring in and out. And I personally feel like we seldom bring voices from our youth. And while I was at Global Youth Leadership Summit, I met this amazing young man with such, I can't even say this, with such intelligence and such a gentle soul. And I want to bring him on because he is phenomenal at one thing, and it's about problem solving. Okay? Because I believe that one of the key success in life is being able to solve problems, because we're going to see problems in our lives, but how do we encounter these problems? How do we go about solving these problems is, I believe, the key in life. And that's helping teaching our kids get a win in life. So the name is Trevor Kirby. He's 16 years old and he's a junior currently in high school. Welcome, Trevor.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So today's topic is about how to teach your children how to problem solve. Let me ask you this. How have being able to solve problem give you an edge in your school, whether you're with your friends, being able to solve problem? How did that help you?
Usually, a lot of times it's getting to conclusions faster. You see these patterns pop up and then you just kind of remember it, and then you just go through and, boom, it turns into muscle memory. Like writing an essay. First time you do it, it's tough, but then you have these certain essays that you can kind of pull away from what you did in the past, and then you do it faster. It's just easier, basically. That ease from that muscle memory. You don't have to sit there and contemplate a lot about what to do next.
So if you guys, the listeners, parents out there, if you guys remember what I talked about, if you want to teach your children to be successful in life, there are three things, right? So number one is being able to recognize the pattern. This is exactly what Trevor's talking about. Number two is you got to be able to use the pattern. And number three, you got to create your own pattern. This is exactly what Trevor is also talking about, is alluding to. If I can ask you, how did you start noticing these patterns and how did you start developing it? Because I remember you were talking about in the beginning, I think one of them was working with your dad on motorcycles. So even before you knew about the combustion engine works, you already learned this stuff and way ahead of the curve. How did that process get started for you?
I just kind of picked it up from art. My mom's an artist, a painter, and she told me that everything has shapes in it. I kind of wanted to see if everything had something in it. It was all based off of something. I figured out that was true. At a very young age, I figured out that was true, and it helped me a lot. You can take something away from everything you do and apply to something else.
When you told me that story, it totally blew my mind, because a lot of people think you got to study the algorithm, like math, all these theories and things like that. Your mom actually taught you how to recognize pattern. You just started from painting. All these different shapes, like cylinder, elongated, rectangular. So that's amazing. Through that process, that sparked your problem solving skill set, because it helped you recognize different patterns. And once you recognize different patterns, oh, I've done that before, so I can do the same again. This is how you're solving problems. The other reason why I forgot to mention why we brought Trevor into this expert series talk, because if you can imagine, about 40 teens were thrown in a group and they were giving very complex problems to solve. And Trevor just nailed it left and right. He's one of the teens in the past that was able to solve problems right away. Let's talk a little bit about mindset. So it's really easy to solve problems, but what happens when you hit a stumbling block and you're maybe even feeling really frustrated? Tell us about your mindset and how did you overcome that, finding the end goal?
Well, you really have to be hard-headed. I know sometimes it's seen as a negative thing, but some problems, if I can't immediately pick up that pattern, I can't immediately know what it's about, I will just run through every single algorithm I know, everything I know. I'll hit my head against a brick wall until I start seeing a crack, because you can't give up, because if you give up, you let the problem win, and you can't let that happen. I try to figure out what the problem is about, kind of see if is it similar to these other problems that you've had, because not all problems are going to be the exact same. Some are going to be a conglomerate, so it's a little bit of something. So you just have to take the patterns that you want to apply and you have to change them for that problem, which in my opinion is the hardest thing to do. It's very difficult for me.
Let's put it in more context. Think about the last challenge, the problem you ran into. So how did you overcome that? And what are some of the formulas you ran through your head? Step one, step two, step three, to kind of give our audience a glimpse of how your mind works.
In high school, there's a thing called AP. It's a college class you have to take. And at the end of the year, you have to take this huge exam. And I did really well in the multiple choice, but the essay is just really kind of got me. That we had to write like a few small ones and then a really long one. That really long one was about a topic that I didn't exactly understand. It was just tough for me. I don't really know anything about what it's saying. We're given evidence, but our teacher didn't like go over it much, and I didn't have that knowledge to fall back on. And so I took the time periods from where the evidence we're supposed to use in our writing. I took the time periods from that and tried to figure out what was going on in that part of the world. And that's how I got over that, is because I didn't necessarily need to specific details, I just needed to know what's going on, so I could basically use the information I already know and then mold it into essay form, basically.
So basically what you're saying is you need to write a paper about some kind of history, and of course there's chronological dates, but instead of remembering every single detail, you want to be able to highlight the most important part in that specific period and the lessons learned. So through that, I think where you basically nailing down the highlights, the important lessons, right? And as you state those lessons, again, problem solve, because you don't know much about the history or the events. The teacher didn't talk much about it. So I'm assuming that you also did a bunch of research around it too. And how you collected all these information together step by step one. Step one is to get the research. Step two is look at the date. Step three is to look at the pattern. So what are the key significant events that happen to those date and the year? And then you can kind of see the overall history of the pattern is going. So that's how you went about in identifying the problem solve. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's super cool. If we were to teach our children to be able to problem solve that way in a chronological order, I mean, how powerful would it be to be able to problem solve?
That would be unstoppable.
Okay, so I remember when you and I were talking that you had specific books that you recommend for teens between age 4 and 8. What books did you read or learn or problem solve? Like, do you recommend, for them to get, this problem solving mindset started? What did you do?
The most thing I read then was either like books about history, like medieval history, that was exciting to me, and Lego manuals. Important to teach them that problem solving, you kind of you can't really expect them to go and solve huge problems already right off the bat. You give them examples of how other people solved problems. Me and my dad love martial arts and boxing, and that when I was a young kid, I remember my dad keep talking about Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle, and how he showed up to where the fight was going to take place like weeks before. And so Muhammad Ali already was accumulated to the heat and to the humidity, and so he could last the distance. And George Foreman just shut down and was just having a horrible time, just hot. But that's how Muhammad Ali problem solved, how he got past the weather, all of that. And it's really just like stories about overcoming odds. Really get your kid thinking about, hey, if they can do it, what's stopping me?
That's so powerful, because it goes back to the framework. Number one, learning the pattern, right? So Muhammad Ali wanted to get the edge, and how he was able to do that was he acclimated himself a couple of weeks beforehand, so that during the fight, he's not sweating, he's not just dogging it, he has the athletics to continue to carry on. So that's where his brilliance, right, where he found that edge. I think what you're trying to say is you want to provide these type of stories, whether it's Muhammad Ali or these like comeback stories or the underdog stories, to really inspire your children, the young minds, that they can do it too. That's really helping them with their mindset. So then tell me around like 9 to where you currently are. What puzzles did you learn that really helped out to really help you really get this problem solving mindset?
There's a thing called the Moscow puzzles. It's a large book of puzzles, and it goes from really simple pattern puzzles to like advanced trigonometry. I wish I had this book sooner, because if I was like 10 years old, I could probably do the first 3 pages and then I'd be stuck. But then I could see myself slowly going through the book more. And I think that put a lot more confidence in me, and it changed my mindset a lot, because if you give your kid a problem that they want to solve, you can't just give their kid a problem and then expect them to solve it, because if they have no want to, then they're not going to. They'll just be like, oh, I can't do it, and then just sit back. But having those problems that they have that hunger for, that they need to, and they feel good when they solve it, it really, really helps them learn. It really helps them have that mindset.
Let's talk about that, Greg, because a lot of parents, what they do is they force their kids to learn. Whereas I think it should be an invitation. When the child feels like they have a sense of purpose, they know the why, they want to learn themselves, versus like, oh, you got to do trigonometry. Oh, you got to do geometry. Oh, you got to, memorize your alphabets, things like that.